running an organization at the level that you guys are running, how do you take care of yourself?
As women, there's a lot of responsibilities.
Yes.
It's not just the business. Still responsible for the kids, for thinking about who's eating, the relationship that we're trying to manage. I've been about model. So that self-care, we closed our office for a month. Even Lisa's like, girl, what you doing? I said, girl.
I said, that's a long time for me not to be able to reach you.
Goodness.
You weren't the only one.
Welcome to Making Progress, a podcast where we discuss and discover what it means to find success in the journey of making change. I'm your host, Myra Reneé.
On today's episode of Making Progress, Myra Reneé is joined by two incredible leaders and dear friends, Annette Miller and Lisa Peyton. Annette Miller is the CEO and founder of EQT by Design, with 25 years in policy and analytics, passionately driving inclusion and engagement across community and government. And Lisa Peyton is the founder, CEO, and president of the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness, now in its 16th year, empowering Black women and their families across Wisconsin to achieve healthier lives. In today's conversation, you'll explore how their journeys intertwined, from neighbors to collaborators, diving into Annette's work creating systemic change and Lisa's mission to transform Black women's health. And they dive right in.
We don't want to say our address.
West Side. And we were so happy because, where we lived, we were one of the first Black families. And so, it was kind of lonely. And then we were so excited when we knew that Myra were here. We're like, another Black family. And they're just right kitty corner. So super excited. And I think we've just been connected ever since.
Yes.
It's just been fabulous. And then my other memory is, so Myra was going to school and she's got these beautiful little kids. And I'm just looking at her like, how is she making that all work?
Barely.
And so just to see you like then and to see us now, I mean, like Lisa, I remember when you came to Madison, I was sitting on an interview panel for a job that you were interested in. You were just like nervous. And I feel like really blessed to just really feel like I saw us before. And then here we are now.
Wow.
It's amazing.
And making such an impact. Lisa, I remember when I first saw you. I don't think I've ever told you the story. So do you remember I was a parent liaison at elementary school?
Yes.
And so we had you speak. But before then, I remember I was like doing like some kind of kindergarten assessment with this kiddo. And you walked in and, your hair is just like, it's just beautiful. Everything about you. And you just have like this presence about you. And you walked in the school. And I remember thinking like, who is this queen that just like literally just walked into this elementary school? Like, what is going on? And I remember just being like, wow, just the way you cared yourself. And we never met, but you just smiled at me. And I was like, oh, I like her. And then like later on, I heard your name around and I was like, I just want her to speak at it was like a parent luncheon. Read your heart out.
Read your heart out.
It was a breakfast. Yes, we had a breakfast.
I was a student there in kindergarten.
Yes. I remember your daughter being in 5th grade at that time as well.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then I learned more about your work through that. And then I remember going to the Black Women's Wellness events.
Oh, yes.
And I think I've gone every year except for last year because I was getting ready to go to Uganda. But I've gone every single year since I've been able to go. So I can't even count how many years. And I've just seen it grow into just such a beautiful event and even into an organization now. So that's been amazing to watch as well.
It's been a journey. 12 years of Black Women's Wellness Day here. 16 total, but 12 of them in Wisconsin. And I remember that day that I walked past her office and I made note. I'm like, there's a Black woman school counselor working here.
Right.
And that was a win moment for me. And so I made that same mental note. I got to figure out who that is and follow up. Tell her to look out for my child up in here. And then things just, as you said, they played out as we met each other in other spaces. So it's really beautiful to see us all evolve. I've known Annette for years, right? I've lived in Madison for two terms. And so in the early 90s, when my family first moved here, I knew you through community. You had a business.
We had North American Rotisserie. Yep. I should say my husband had the business. Him and Kip.
Yes.
Mike and Kip show.
Yeah. And our family were frequenters because we lived very close by. We loved the food. Such a beautiful space. And everybody was sad when you decided to transition into something else. And then watching your work evolve, always being a change maker and a shaker upper, as I would say. And then leaving for a decade, coming back and being able to work together in a way now that is so close and so aligned in the equity space and so many other spaces. It's been quite a journey.
It's wonderful. And you had some previous, so I heard about Kips. I wasn't around Madison, but I have heard about it.
Yeah.
But then I've heard also, I think I remember you when I got to Madison, you worked in government and you worked in the mayor's office.
Yep.
So where did you kind of get interested into like, I mean, I know just us being Black women in general, right? Like we care about equity and diversity and those things, but like what made you want to like really
dig into
it more? Was it the days of government or
Right. My personal story is being a mixed woman, multicultural, American and German. My mother's German, my father's African American from Kentucky. And not feeling like I belonged, always, and as a military brat, moving around many times. And so always having to figure out how to fit in and do I want to fit in? And then watching the very serious, micro and macro aggressions happen in terms of how do I belong or how does my family belong? Or watching other people trying to fit in, whether it was school or in the neighborhood, et cetera. When I graduated from college, here at UW, I started in state government and I was working with people who needed services and programs. And so I was a policy and program person trying to figure out like, how do we get resources to people in need? Typically low income, racially, ethnically, culturally, not white, and different languages, different identities. And I think that it kind of just came together. I found myself always wondering, how do I build a bridge so that I can build belonging? How can I create access? Like if our communities knew about these resources or about these opportunities or knew if we spoke up that we could actually make change, how do we close gaps? How do we build bridges? How do we get voices of people who are not typically heard from into the center of decision making, whether it's housing, whether it's streets, whether it's maternal child health, mental health, entrepreneurship, all of it. I feel like we need to have a seat at the table and not just one, many. And so that's what I've always been fighting for. And so I just brought like my personal experience of wanting to fit in and belong. And then my work experience of understanding that information is power. And so how do we get that information out there? And then how do we galvanize? So
It's wonderful. And when when I hear about you, Annette, you're one of those people, like you could have done anything. I remember like people were pushing you to even like run to be mayor. Do you guys remember that? That you were like, I want to make and create change in this kind of way and creating EQT by design. And it's been so successful. You have
I have seven team members, including myself at the firm. Yep. Started out as a solopreneur the first two years and then hired an employee. And then from there started hiring contractors and then decided last year that I'm not trying to be a typical firm. I want to model the non-traditional. And so I have a team of contractors, but we look to the public like a firm and they look like they're employees, but they're not. There are contracted employees who are super smart and talented, and we're all together trying to create, equity with intention and with design. Yeah.
And Lisa.
Yeah.
I remember being at one of the events and hearing your story about your mom.
Yeah.
And just like how you really took something, well, I'll let you share it, but something that's, very tragic, right? Of losing your mother and creating this beautiful organization to really help with health equity. Can you talk a little bit more about like how that all began? And
the work of the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness did really emanate from a very personal place of loss, but also beauty of growing up in my mother's hair salon in Richmond, Virginia, where I was born and raised, in this thriving Black community with long history of legacy in that area, self-determined people, powerful matriarchal families, powerful, loving men in our family, and everyone working together to improve, to progress generation by generation. So I had that grounding by how folks work together, how they pulled together, how they took care of each other. And because of that, when I experienced that deep loss of my mother's death in 2006, after watching her life be so full of putting back into community, of empowering women in her hair salon, giving life and creating this beautiful, safe space for Black women to let their hair down, literally and figuratively. When she closed her eyes and I buried her, it brought to bear the beauty of all of that legacy that she had built, but also the pain that we had buried many women who had passed through that hair salon. And the women were not elderly. They were in their late 30s, mid 40s, 50s, and 60s, dying of heart attack, stroke, cancer, diabetes, some by violence, and all that I would say, impacted by the stress of living as Black women in a society that demanded more of you than it gave you against incredible odds. My mother grew up in segregated Richmond, Virginia. That's a fact of life. That's not past history, that's current history. And what it took for her and Black women in my family and men to catapult forward, to open a way for opportunity and stability and economic security for our family, it cost them dearly. The cost has been loss of life. We call it disparities. The early chronic illness rates, the early deaths, is endemic to the realities of structural racism and that historical legacy on the very well-being of Black folks. And so that, witnessing that, seeing that, and seeing that it was just not something that happened to me, but it was a pattern, that played out much in the ways that I told the story as my mother's shampoo girl, standing in the back of her salon, answering the phone while shampooing hair, taking the calls and, triaging them to my mother or her business partner, who also, was a stylist, getting those phone calls from customers' families, from their children, from their sisters to say, Lisa, when your mom's done working on whoever's head she's working on, let her know that Hazel passed away. Her children found her body in her bathroom this morning. She got off from the third shift at the cigarette factory and they found her on the floor, stroke. Or tell your mother that Paulette passed away this morning. Her cancer took over her body. None of the treatments that they traveled far and wide for worked. So at 52, she's gone. And those calls kept coming year after year after year. So my mother's death was a catalyst that really formed a bigger picture in my mind that this is not isolated. This is a predicament for Black women. And I had been to college. I've been to grad school. I'm a sociology major by training, and always aware through my upbringing and the community that I grew up in, the cradle of the Confederacy of Richmond, Virginia, very aware of the impact of race and inequality. So I had that framing. And my mother's death pushed me to put it all together into a cohesive story about what the crisis facing Black women's health and Black community health. And I had to do something about it. And what I envisioned was first to create a beautiful day called Black Women's Wellness Day, to celebrate my mother's life and her legacy and to use it as a framing opportunity to bring Black women together in a sense of empowerment and change and transformation, to say, let's look at this predicament that we're in as Black women. Let's name what is happening. And so it was important to me to create power out of pain.
Yep.
And to position Black women to be powerful in naming what we were experiencing, but creating solutions for it. And over time, that event that so many women and people in our community know about now has impacted thousands of lives over the last 15 years, has led to the creation of the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness, which is now celebrating our 12th year. It's a full-fledged nonprofit organization committed to empowering a generation of well Black women.
Well, congratulations to both of you. Like, seriously, like, just thinking and like hearing about the type of work, I mean, that we all do, right? Being that we're not just like talking about equity for like some other community. We're a part of that community, right? And these things affect us just as much as it does with the people we're advocating for.
Yeah.
Running an organization at the level that you guys are running it, how do you take care of yourself? How do you do that, right? Like, we're talking
Lisa,
about all right.
How do we do that? What do Black women deserve?
Oh, that's a beautiful conversation to have.
Right.
You know what? We start with passion. We start with personal experience, and there's no roadmap. You know, but it's easier said than done. So it really takes practice, discipline, consciousness, intention.
Yeah.
Other people,
support network to nudge you and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
you know, you used to call me." She called me one day and she said, "You're doing too much."
I did. I was like,
great.
because I was looking and seeing what time the emails are coming. And so we are working on a project together. And I literally will go, "We don't need to meet. We don't need to meet." And she's going, we do. And I go,
No.
And I'm like, "I know we do, but we're not."
Yeah.
And she'll be like, "Fine." She'll be like, "Fine."
And, you know, you have to learn the balance. You know, there's the realistic truth about running a business and being successful in it. There are many, many challenges that come with that. And it really is a disciplined action to say, I can deal with it tomorrow. It'll be there next week. There's enough controls in place. It's not a fire yet. And I need to go take my shower, take my nap, take my walk, take my run,
Shut that
take my
computer
PTO.
down.
And I have to say, she is doing more.
Delegate.
She is doing more of that. I have watched her journey. And
So she's not just saying it.
She's not just saying it.
She's practicing
She
it.
is definitely practicing it. And I will say that, you know, for me, I was fortunate. I got to watch my husband start a restaurant with his business partners. I got to watch firsthand how we got treated, you know, being Black-owned restaurant in Madison, what that looked like. And then I got to do it myself, right? And start my own business, which is not a restaurant. It's a consulting firm. So, you know, the pain points and the trauma that I dealt with was different than what these three Black men, you know, had to deal with, but they're parallel but different, right? And I think that what I really did in my trailblazing is I was like, I'm modeling, and I modeling what rates should be. I have talked to women, especially women of color. I'm like, that's not enough. How are you accounting for this? How are you accounting for that? So I model it and I coach on it, and I do it on the side because I'm just like and what drives me on that one is I watched a beloved woman who was a consultant doing DEI work, basically give all of herself and not, you know, have the financial ability to take care of herself in the end, and it was wrong. And it felt egregious. And I was like, that ain't me. And it shouldn't be anybody else. And so, you know, we work hard. You know, we work hard and we carry many burdens. You know, when Lisa was talking about, and even Myra and myself, when we thought about we're going to start a business, we don't get to just think about ourselves. We're thinking about the kids we're raising. We're thinking about the mortgage. We're thinking about like, how are we going to let go of the system where there's a consistent check? I mean, there was a lot on the line for us to move from, you know, a consistent check to taking a risk with all of that, you know, on us, because as women, we have more roles that we have to hold on to. Not only are we talking about how are we going to bring home the bacon with this entrepreneurship idea that is a hard market to even do, we're still responsible for the kids. We're still responsible for thinking about who's eating. We're still responsible for what's happening at school. We're still responsible for the relationship that we're trying to manage. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility.
Yes.
So it's not just the business. And that's what people, forget or don't take into consideration. The historical model of business has been made for men.
Right.
The wife was taking care of all of those things. Well, when you're the wife, who
She's
is
preaching.
now a business owner, you doing double, triple, quadruple duty. And it's not that my man ain't got my back, because my man got my back, So for me, I've been about model. So that self-care, I'm like, we closed our office. I still remember when we closed our office, for a month. Even Lisa's like, girl, what you doing? I said, girl.
I said, that's a long time for me not to be able to reach you.
Goodness.
And you weren't the only one. You were not the only one. But you know what? I was like, we work hard every day. And this is the other piece. You brought it up earlier. It's lived experience.
Right.
Not only am I doing equity work to hopefully make change in the community, I am being microaggressed every time I have a conversation about equity. And I need a break.
Right.
I need a break to rest, to fill my own tank up, to be with my family, to be with my peers, and just have a break to rest. And so I was like, I'm closing it. And I did it. And then other people were like, well, she did it. I'm going to do it too. And I'm, as you should, and I just feel like, and the reason I can do it is because I came into the market starting this business when I was older. I didn't come in at 20 or 30 with nobody knowing who I was. I came into the market with a brand, with people knowing what I do and what I'm about. And they know how determined I am. And it's kind of hard to tell me what to do. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And so I let go of my fears about what white systems were going to say or what peers were going to say. And I really just was like, Black women deserve, Black women have earned the ability to make decisions about what they think are in the best interest of ourselves. And I just had to follow that. And it was scary. My knees were knocking. I did get feedback, most of it good. But I got some complaints, but we continued to do it. And again, now we see lots of people doing the same thing. Now, maybe they're not closed for a month, but they are closed for 3 weeks or they're closed for 2 weeks, and they do it often and frequently. And we call that rest is liberation.
I love
because
that.
how do we liberate ourselves if we cannot rest?
Right.
And something Annette said, so important. I thought doing business here, being a Black woman CEO, being a CEO, period.
Right.
And in this case, folks like to compare, CEOs to CEOs. And all CEOs have a large charge. When you're at the helm of something, you're responsible. The buck stops with you, starts and stops with you. Yeah. But when you build something brick by brick, we didn't inherit our organizations. We weren't hired to run something that's been established for 20, 30, 100 years. We constructed a vision and a concept into a viable business day by day over a period of time. And that's a different type of, that type of founder reality of constructing a thing from nothing to something tangible is grueling work. It's exciting work. Yeah. We're equipped to do it. Yeah. But it takes a different level of energy, a different level of commitment when you know that your company, your organization will survive or fail based on your efforts. And to do that anywhere is challenging.
It's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of weight. It's a lot of weight in Wisconsin. It's a lot of weight in Dane County where we have to fight to be seen as legitimate CEOs as Black women in a city, in a county, an environment that has not traditionally equated Black women and leadership, Black women in CEOship, Black women in company formation.
Black women who manage money, lead people, make policy decisions, make political decisions, move community to do things that they wouldn't normally do, changing systems, transforming systems, saving lives.
Doing
every
it
day
consistently.
and doing
Impact
it
on economy.
Impact on economy.
Expanding and
How many people do we hire collectively? And what do they look like? What do they sound like? What do they identify like?
Say that creating jobs. Creating sustainable jobs, offering healthy benefits to working families, right? Contributing to the local economy, bringing dollars
keeping the dollar here, hiring other businesses of color.
Right.
And also,
but we ain't a CEO. We aren't asked to sit at the table and make decisions.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. But also, and the beauty of Black women's leadership, the way that we open for ourselves and to bring in talented women of color, people of color, we also work so freely and openly with everyone. Our partners, people who we hire for consulting, they look like the rainbow.
Yes, they do.
You know, we don't just hire Black people to do work. We hire all people to do work, and the evidence is there. And so our living equity, our living true equality, and who makes up our networks, who we partner with, is the true definition of how equity should look. And Black women really model that.
I think we do.
Better than
Absolutely.
everyone.
Yeah.
Yes. And I agree, because I mean, today we're getting our roof done. I mean, everyone, and we're very conscious. We want to hire the best, but we are very intentional in hiring Black and brown contractors for any work that we do.
And they are the best.
And they are absolutely
and they're
the
Black
best.
And brown.
And they're
And I think that's for me, what frustrates me about Madison is they don't see it. We're still invisible.
Yeah, we were talking about this today. You know, we operate at levels where we have access to whoever we want to talk to, whoever we need to talk to, from the highest levels of government to the highest levels of company leadership to funders and donors. We know how to get to those folks. There's no barriers there. And our organizations continue to prove on track records of success that we are contributors to this business community in significant ways, and solving real crises and driving solutions and new approaches. But there's still folks who don't see us as CEOs. So if you ask folks, you know, list the CEOs that you would invite into a meeting, if there's a regional or local meeting that convenes CEOs to talk about the health of a region, why don't Black women CEOs make that list? Why aren't we on the invite list? Why are we not in the room?
And why
aren't we seen?
Yeah, and why are they mainly men still?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, like, why is that?
But they don't slow us down. Right?
No.
They fuel the fire of saying, that's just the motivation that we need to continue to build our enterprises in a way, because we know we're modeling something powerful and significant that is changing the landscape of this community and adding viable solutions that are creative and new. And never been done in the way that we've been doing them. You know, there's much innovation in this, even that word innovation. When people hear the word innovation, they don't land on Black women or Black communities or communities of color.
We're innovating every
so
moment.
Much innovation. And, you know, when we do innovate, and even when we speak about that innovation, the tendency to gloss over and pass over. But if someone else comes with something similar later, the recognition goes to them, and we say, we started doing that 10 years ago. We were doing that 5 years ago. We introduced this model. We drew this logic model. We conceptualized this strategy. It's not that we have to own it to the exclusion of others, but name and give credit for where Black women have innovated and led the charge in the same way that you readily give credit to those that you're, you know, closest to or most comfortable.
And they go to the same people, it's the same MO all the time. And I think that's what's really frustrating is that we are the freaking MO.
And this interview is about us, right? But we have to nod you. I remember, Myra, I remember when you were in graduate school completing, all the credentials to become a mental health practitioner at this level.
Yeah.
And you told me then, I want to one day have my own practice that really fills the gap to serve our communities, because working in the capacity that you were at that time, seeing so much need and unmet need, so much cultural incongruence in services and the effectiveness of them really healing and relating to the unique challenges of our community. That was more than a decade. That was like 15 years ago, I believe.
The idea of it.
I feel like we keep talking about 12 years.
12 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
12 years ago. That was the pivotal moment, right?
Right.
12 years ago.
I started Anissa's, it's been 8 years. So that was probably 12 years.
12 years.
Yeah.
So from concept and dream to making it happen.
Yeah.
And breaking into the mental health arena as a Black woman. And I'm telling you, as someone who worked in social services, in the alleyways and byways of Madison's service community, working with our most vulnerable families for over a decade, and knowing the gaps and seeing that even as a case manager, I could not, there was no place like yours to refer people to. There was no practitioner like you, or not many, maybe one or two in those times, and most of them were men. And to now see that evolution where Anissa's has become this premier, preferred, sought after mental health provider in our community with so much trust and a track record of clients that we've all referred who come back to say, it changed my life to be there. I've been to many, many places, and they can name all the places and the spaces, and not to take away from all of those vital providers, but there is something to be said about being able to establish a mental health agency in this community and to grow it and to have the level of impact in such a short span of time in comparison to the lifespan of other entities that have been doing this for decades. It's remarkable.
Thank you.
It's remarkable.
Thank you. I think for me, that's the best part, right? Of being in this part of leadership role is like that impact.
Yes.
I think also I look at the employees part too, of like being able to like just see people's lives change, like financially, like having a good job and like enjoying their work that they do, enjoying their work environment. Those are like the best parts. What are the best parts for you all?
I will tell you, for me, what's beautiful about the partnership that we've had, we've created a workforce of doulas and community health workers and health promoters. And we are helping to change the face and the look of clinics. And so we're creating this real viable workforce like that wasn't there before, or not in the way that was super visible to the community. The way I get excited when I'm sitting in a room of execs and we're all sitting together and we co-create a solution. Like we get stuck and then we figure out together how to get unstuck. And then I listen to how everybody leans in and gets committed on how they really want to solve this. I watched Lisa talk about how she had a vision for the foundation. And then to see like she went from herself in a board to like this incredible team of staff and the funding veracity that she has, and the brand and the impact. Watching the community, watching these women come in and they're crying and they're laughing and they're hugging and just
I've seen it,
and we're all just affirming each other. Like
you just struck a chord with me with the whole kids. I remember this one moment, and I will never forget it. We had a staff retreat, and my kids happened to come at the very end, and it was like all of our team. It was just like a huge circle. It was like maybe like 50 of us at the time. And we were doing a cheers for the building because we had just bought the building.
Yes.
And I will never forget. I can't even do the same look that my son gave me, but it was my oldest son and he just looked at me and I could just see this like pride in his mama that he had. I will never forget that look of like just making one of my kids proud of the work, because our kids share us with so many people, right? With the community. And I feel like it's a whole family sacrifice, even if they're not doing the work, they are essentially, because they're letting their mama go out and do whatever it is
what
that I'm doing,
do. Right.
And I will never forget that. It was just such a beautiful moment.
She captured it all. You captured it all. I guess, there's a vision that I had just last year at our 15th annual Black Women's Wellness Day event. As you all know, it's our big annual fundraiser that helps fuel all of the very broad body of programs and initiatives that we now lead in the community, from a once upon a time solo founder in 2012 who worked by myself with volunteers for the first 7 years. There was no large budget. There was no staff. It was grit and determination. I was tabling at the community resource fairs. I was selling tickets for Black Women's Wellness Day. I was doing the speaking circuit alone. I was running programs in the Urban League and my little cubicle that I was given.
Yes, ma'am.
And then over time, that transition and change to, guts, determination, know-how, led to bigger budgets, more success with writing grants, moving from $150,000 budget in 2018 to $3.7 million budget in just a couple of years, with a staff of 1 to now 17, serving thousands of women every year in Dane County and across Wisconsin, and with a national footprint of policy advocacy work. And the best personification of what that feels like is when I stood on the stage at Black Women's Wellness Day last year at Monona Terrace, and I looked out at 1,000 people and women and partners and allies from across Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota. Someone flew there from California, Maryland. Someone stood up and said, "I'm from Africa."
Okay.
I was here and I heard about this event while I was in the States, and to see women, as you say, stand on their feet and applause and jubilance, who still tell us 12 years later, we've never seen or witnessed anything like this in this city, in this state. Lisa, you have come, and the women that you've built this legion of loyal, committed, Black women, ambassadors. You've shown us how to stand up in this city and believe that we can create our own solutions and our own answers. You modeled and opened the way for a Black woman after Black woman to now come behind and replicate and do their own thing in their own way.
Right.
And that's the validation for me, and why I have the strength to keep going up even on the tough days when you got to raise $1 million every year to keep your people and to keep things running. We do it knowing, I have that vision that these 1,000 women and the thousands more, the 15,000 in Dane County alone that we're vying for, the thousands more across the state and the millions across the country, as we have walking, ambassadors walking across 32 states. So the work isn't just localized here. There's so much more potential and power. And that's the validation that we can be our own answer. And Black women have power.
Yes.
And Black women can create. Black women have always been creators of our own answers. But you don't see that everywhere. What I saw growing up in Virginia and on the East Coast, that was normal to me to see Black self-determination and creation. When I landed in Madison in 1993, I did not see Black self-determination in the way I see it today. I did not see the plethora now of pathways for Black women leading in organizations. There were some, but what has changed over that time, the progress that we've made as a community, and as a Black community, so much Black woman labor even in our own community, Black women's labor in creating and producing change and driving solutions and building institutions in our own community is often uncelebrated at the level that it deserves. And so I take comfort that Black women now, amongst the many Black women CEOs in our city, not enough, but there's more than when I arrived.
Strong representation.
Strong representation. And we can all list their names, powerful Black women who are paving new directions. We are proving to ourselves that we can, bring to visualization the contributions that we have and that they make significant impact. And in the process, they transform how little Black girls and Black teenagers see themselves, and Black women who may have, feel themselves so far from opportunity to say, girl, I don't come from wealth. I don't come from, a pathway that was clear to me, but with passion and the ability and the willingness to learn, improve yourself, network, figure it out.
Yeah.
We can all do this. And here's the proof. So get on with it.
Yes.
And move forward with your vision and believe that you can do it and see the transformative effect that it will have on a city, on a state, on a country, on the world. It's real.
What would be some advice to give to someone inspiring to be an entrepreneur?
Well, I would say look to your left and right. Look for those peers. Look for the people who inspire you. Get connected, network, ask questions, be curious. Don't be afraid to ask. That's how I got my first employee. I was speaking, and after I was done speaking, she walked up to me and she's like, "You're so amazing. I would love, do you need any help?"
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, but I didn't know how to actualize it. But then that was like the first trigger for me. Like, someone wants to help me. I need to figure out how to do this. So my other advice is say yes. Yeah. Keep saying yes, because those yeses lead you into pathways and opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise thought about, but for saying yes. And then my next piece of advice is then learn how to say no, because those other yeses are important. And if you say yes too much, then you're not going to be able to give your full potential, but say yes. And I think that's for people, for women and men who are, seeking, to be entrepreneurial, and don't be afraid to try, and don't let anyone tell you that you can't, or that you shouldn't, or that's not right, because they don't know. Only you know. And all you need is one person to believe in you for you to have movement and momentum. That's all you need. You just need one other person to believe in you, and you can make that happen.
That's facts. I remember the day, and I'll remember a piece of advice. The day that I called you, I was working in a senior leadership position at a local business. And it was stirring in my soul. I knew the time had come. I had to make a pivotal decision. This was around 2017. And I said, I have to work this day job because I got children. I got a family of 7. I've got kids to go to college. I need benefits. I need all these things. But my spirit is telling me that it's time to move the foundation to the next level. And I know now I've been doing both. And I'm a mother and I run a home. I can't do, I'm robbing time from my kids. My health is, in question. I'm going to burn out. I'm going to collapse. Something has to go. But this security of this position and this passion work that I know can catapult if I had full attention on it 24/7. Look at what we've done in half the time. And I said, Annette, I'm so scared, but I know I have to take this job. And she said, girl, just do it.
I did.
She said, you're not going to know. you're not going to know and you're not going to have peace in your spirit. And I came to her because at that same time, you know, you had moved into,
started.
Had just got started in Equity by Design. And it was scary for you. And I remember you put together a whole presentation and you invited us all over to do like a pilot of your template of what you plan to do. And I thought that was so brave. I'm like, she's just gotten out here and created her branding and she's bravely presenting her concept for all of us to pick at and give feedback. I was like, woo. I said, if she can do it, I can do it. And she's telling me I can do it. I took the lead, but I don't know if I could have done it if two women whose trust was so important to me, who, if they didn't say, you have to do it and it's going to be okay. You're smart. You know, you're
talented, capable,
smart, talented,
and
capable.
Ready, so ready.
And
did you guys know that it was going to grow the way your businesses have grown? So me neither. I remember when I first started my practice and I said, I didn't even want to make money. I said, I literally said to everyone, I said, just want to break even.
Yeah.
So I can just pay like my business bills. If I bring some money, like that's fine. But like I had like really, I was like, I just don't want to like put my own money. Of course I put my own money in it, but like I didn't want to be like in the hole.
You weren't trying.
I was like, if I could break even, we know we've
succeeded.
I might be onto something.
Right. That's so real. The things that you just said. I invested in my nonprofit. It was my own personal money for the first 7 years. Before any other money came from anywhere. We're very creative in our community of doing some things without money until you realize you need money to do it. So that piece of really hearing, you know, folks need to hear sometimes to start up a thing, you got to make an investment. You also have to be okay with doing it scared.
Yes.
You have to do it scared. If you sit in fear and think of all the reasons why it won't work, you'll come up with a long list of reasons why it's risky.
And then you'll never do it.
And you'll never do it and you will live with that regret. And I wasn't willing at that stage of my life to live with the regret of saying I didn't try it. You know, I had reached that point where that burning need internally was so strong that I could not go into, you know, I could not fathom not doing it. I just needed that push. I needed that assurance. And I'm a confident woman who makes so many decisions every day. I don't consult anybody. I don't usually consult people. I just pray about it and I move. But a business, knowing that if you go down that road, if you open that door, the idea is to keep that door open. So that's a lifelong commitment of sustaining a thing that you are fully responsible for with no safety net. It took a different type of assurance that I needed to take the leap, but I took the leap. Oh my God.
Like you're just like, something about entrepreneurship is like, you're just kind of out there, right? And
you're just out there
for the world to see.
For the world to see.
However, succeeding or failing. The world is going to see it. And you got to be willing to face that risk with the faith that you're going to do everything possible to ensure that it's successful. But I also remember, you know, I want to serve Black women. I want to address what I see happening. I want to change this and transform this dynamic. And if I can raise enough money so that I can do this full time without having to have another job, and just do the work that I'm passionate about, and sustain it enough so that I can also meet my obligations to my children, my first responsibility, then it'll be enough.
Right.
And then you get into it and you're like, oh, that's not going to be enough.
Right.
To really serve and requires that you scale. To really meet needs requires that you go bigger and you go deeper. And that's when you really have to overcome the fear of what does it mean to envision bigger.
And I think to add to that is also don't be quiet about it.
You can't.
Don't be quiet about it.
Introverts out there, which I'm an extroverted introvert, you have to get comfortable with sharing your message. You have to get comfortable speaking to people, talking to people.
And used to rejection too, because that will happen. Not everyone's going to receive whatever it is that you're talking about or wanting to do. The rejection is actually really normal too.
It's very
normal.
I
think, sometimes people experience it. And being a Black woman in business, you're going to get it. You're going to have to keep going anyways. Yes. And I think that's also like another...
It's disconcerting.
Yeah.
It's unnerving to think that you're going to get a no after you've put yourself out there and the work is so personal to you.
Yeah.
The mission is a part of your life and who you are and your community and the things that you've witnessed. And to get a no can turn some people away, can turn some people back. But it has to be seen as learning lesson, more information that you're gathering to refine and perfect what you're doing, with the understanding that some people just aren't going to be aligned, and it's okay. Yeah. But the other piece of this, the advice, talking to the universe, asking, I'm a spiritual person. I'm always talking to the universe every day. That's something that's not spoken of enough in the particular dynamic of Black women leaders. Often our spiritual lives are such an integrated part of our business lives.
Yes.
And that's really important. And along with that spiritual rooting, that grounding, that belief in self, that willingness to fail and get back up, doing it scared, you got to do the work. You cannot skip. It looks glamorous. It looks wonderful. It looks, from the outside looking in, you see our wonderful branded logos and our companies, and we're at microphones and the pictures looking wonderful in front of large audiences. It takes work to get there. The hours of work that it takes to construct and build a thing.
The tears.
The tears.
I've had tears, a lot of tears.
There are tears. Yeah. There's anxiety. There's,
no.
It is not for those who want a quick fix and quick success. It is a game of perseverance and learning and consistently improving and investing back in your enterprise to make it stronger and better. And you cannot take any shortcuts in doing that.
And you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in your dream, believe in your vision, believe in your purpose, and always keep in front of you your why. I think that we've been socialized to think that, men are the deal makers, the financiers. They're the ones who sit in the seats. And I think what I'm saying is that Black women, Latina women, Hmong women, Muslim women, and anything and everything in between women make deals, know how to do deals. We do it every day. And we deserve and we've earned to be at the table, not just one of us, but many of us. But we need to be in a lot more visible and not visible tables, making decisions about what this community looks like today and tomorrow.
Yes.
And I'm a little tired of having the same people making those decisions about us and for us and without us.
And we're worthy of large dollar and multi-million dollar investments.
Absolutely.
Because we prove our value, our worth, and our capability of building a sustaining, strong, impactful institution. So I'd like to see in the burgeoning levels of support for Black institutions, which we need and are hard fought, well-deserved, that intentional investments are made in Black women enterprises at that $1 million+ level.
Yes.
That would be a powerful day in Greater Madison.
Right. What are the plans that you have, like, for your business, for yourself?
I mean, I'm just going to continue.
At least what you can share.
Right. You know what? We are looking to do some things that are innovative, and we're super excited, to be bringing that to the forefront. I think one thing we're focused on right now is doing really good storytelling. That's number one. I think number two, really showing our impact, the impact of why community matters, why community voice matters. And then I think, how do we really create space for community to be engaged and to be excited about being engaged on things that matter to them? And I think long-term, I just want to continue to model systems change, equity, inclusion, belonging. And I just want everybody to get on board with that and see us as the firm, that brings that to the table and does it, with strength and veracity and with a lot of love and attention to community and to the work that's being asked of us. And I don't have big grandiose ideas because I think this work is hard, and I want to just stay focused on the intention and the impact. And I want people to continue to value what we do.
Mm-hmm. Such a good question, because we've grown as an organization from grassroots to emerging, and now we're in that stage of moving between emerging to mature. And so strategy around our sustainability and the continuity of our work to have the most impact where it matters most. And of course, we heavily serve Dane County. Our policy advocacy work is statewide. But there's still opportunity to deepen how our presence looks in Milwaukee, how our presence looks in Rock County, where the highest populations of Black women who are most impacted by disparities live, and to build that movement and to build a strong, connected coalition of empowered Black women who really together then can really change some things statewide if we connect our efforts together. So that's one piece of the work. And of course, we always have our set sight on all the tentacles that our work creates beyond Wisconsin. So the next decade, I think we'll be contemplating how does the foundation's work look in other areas.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking about that policy and advocacy on a national level.
Yes, and movement building for Black women's wellness.
Yeah.
I'm excited for all of us.
Yeah, I'm so glad we got together. I think we need to say cheers.
Yes.
I think so too.
Cheers.
Just say making progress.
Making progress.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Making Progress with Myra Reneé. Special thank you to our guests, Lisa Peyton and Annette Miller. This podcast was produced by Puente Creative Studios. Learn more about the podcast and our host at myrarenee.com. Join us next time, everywhere podcasts can be heard.